Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to the TCEC Season 18 Premier Division. So finally we're in this Premier Division stage because in this second division and the first division LCZero and Stockfish didn't participate so far in the tournament. Now they're joined in this Premier Division in which we have again great battles, and as expected LCZero and Stockfish are already in the lead. They have won some games. So far the other engines are behind, but still I think this will be a great tournament because we'll have some great opening preparations, great tactical battles, but also I think that again we'll have the same super final between the two top engines, of course, LCZero and Stockfish. So today I wanted to show you really a great game from round one. It's Stockfish versus Fire. Fire promoted from this first division to the Premier Division and faces now Stockfish. Stockfish plays here, I think, a great game against the Dutch defense, and for those who are have trouble to play against this very positional opening, here is a way how to really crush this opening, because sometimes you see, like in this game, Black has troubles with this development of the light square bishop, and as I mentioned in my title, basically chess is sort of a game between bishops and pawns. So I'll show you what I meant by that, what's the meaning of my title, because you see how important it is to evaluate the positions by your pawns and bishops, and then you can really find some great strategies. So let's check out the game. We have d4 and f5, so the Dutch defense here by Fire, c4, knight to f6, knight to f3, we have e6, and now g3. We have the fianchetto attack against the Dutch defense. I myself, I'm playing this attack myself, but sometimes I try the Staunton Gambit. Still, I lose many games because the Staunton Gambit with this immediate e4 pawn sacrifice is sometimes too aggressive. I'm still trying it because I'll try also some other sidelines, because by watching this top engine games I've improved also a little bit in my theoretical understanding of particular openings. So here we have, as I said, the fianchetto attack, and now c6. The idea is clear, of course, to cement here the center with the move d5. We have bishop to g2 and now d5. So I want to stop a little bit and already evaluate the position. Still nothing special is going on, of course, but we can really, as I always like to say, talk so many things about this position already, because we have now this static center setup, and as I mentioned in my title, chess is all about bishops and pawns. So when we evaluate the strength of our light square bishop, for instance here of whites, is perfectly fine because it aims here on this diagonal. Still, if this diagonal clears, this would be, of course, a good bishop here on g2. Although this is a good bishop, here this dark square bishop by white, still you have this centralized pawn on your dark square. So from an endgame's perspective, it's maybe not so good to have your pawns on dark squares when you have the dark square bishop on the board. On the other hand, when we watch Black's activity, of course the dark square bishop is a perfect bishop because it will probably come to d6, and then it will cover this very powerful diagonal. On the other hand, Black has this problem of the light square bishop because it's blocked out by its own pawns here by e6 and c6. So the problem for Black is that this is a static position, as I mentioned. So when we have static positions, it's hard to move pawns. So in order to improve this activity of this bishop, you cannot basically play the move e5 in order to make that happen. So what basically Black always is relying on in Dutch defense games is his outpost on e4. So then Black will try to coordinate the attack maybe with g5, h5 moves. But still, I wanted to point you out that this bishop is a bad bishop. So you see how Stockfish will handle this positional problems of Black. Here, castling played by Stockfish. We have bishop to d6 and now c5. After bishop to c7, knight to c3. And here, when I watched the game and analyzed the game, I asked myself here, Fire castled immediately. Why didn't Fire play immediately the move b6? Because it seemed to me that this would be a natural move, cracking the position here immediately around the c5 square, because white needs to improve the position here with the move b4, and a5 would be sort of a possibility. But then I really used the Stockfish engine and tried to see the best way here. c takes b6 is a good move. After bishop takes b6, we have knight to f4. So this is really a great opening preparation. So for instance, if someone plays you this move b6, you could go here into this attack with knight to f4, because if black takes here on b4, we have a3. And the problem is now, if you take bishop takes a3, then b takes a3, pardon me, then we have bishop takes a3, and you'll never be able to castle anymore in this game, I think. So it will be a problematic thing for you. So what black could do in this particular position is to play maybe bishop to a5, but now knight to c5. And if you try to challenge the knight here on c5, then knight to e5, you see how white would occupy here this two very weak squares in black's position. If you take, for instance, I think we can play simply a takes b4, or even knight to c6 is a possibility. So you see, b6 here in this position is not possible. Incredible thing. I really meant that that black could do this move, but okay, it wasn't played in the game. I just wanted to show you what would happen if black would have played this. But here in the game, castling played, and now queen to a4. So now b6 is not a possibility anymore, because then you would have maybe here your c6 weakness. You would have troubles to develop your knight. The knight would be stuck a little bit to the defense of this c6 pawn. So that's why here knight to d7. And now comes this common idea that I mentioned also in my title. As I said, chess is all about bishops and pawns. Of course, it's not all about, but really as a strategical point, as a strategical idea, here this trades of bishop to basically force a trade of a good bishop. Here the bishop on c7 is of course a good bishop. Now after bishop takes f4, g takes f4, we have now a new position in which black continues the game with a really bad bishop here on c8. So okay, we have double pawns, but as I said, this game is a static game. It's really hard to push pawns to get some kind of an activity. You see, white has the control of the e5 now. We want to cement, of course, now our knight on e5, which is basically the main weak square in black's position. And of course, black would love to also here to play knight to e4. So now it's all about outposts, but when we evaluate the position by bishop's activity, I simply like white's position more, of course. So knight to e4, we have e3, cementing further our center. Now again with the possibility to play knight to e5. If knight takes c3, then it's not so good anymore, because b takes c3, and again we would have some possibilities, maybe even to go rook to b1, attacking here the b file, still with possibilities to play knight to e5. And what we in this position, what we basically would wait for is black to play knight to f6, knight to e4. And when that happens, it would be a good thing to give up maybe here the light square bishop when that knight comes on e4, then to maybe play again our outpost on e4. And if we evaluate maybe our strength of the knight on e4 and this bishop's activity on c8, again white would have, I think, a comfortable game. So that's why after e3 you see rook to f6. So as I said, black has some counterplay possibilities. It's not so easy to defend here. You have to be accurate and you have to be careful, because you see rook to f6. As I said, black is building simply his attack around this centralized knight. And here h3. Very important move to get our king here to security to h2. And also maybe try, if the position allows it, maybe to get, pardon me, here to get use of the g file, because the g file is sort of a semi-open file. We could use it maybe for rook's activity, but that's not possible so far, because the knight is of course attacking this f2 square. So rook to h6, we have king to h2, and now comes b5, we have c takes b6, queen takes b6. And now Stockfish plays, I think, a great move, finds really a great idea how to get use of this lack of activity of these bishops. And also there is a new strategical problem that black has here in the game, and it's this backward pawn on c6. So when we are searching for strategical ideas in the game, we could talk here really about, as I said, here we have first of all we have here this bad bishop situation. The other thing is of course this weak squares in the position, which are here maybe the e5, also the c5 is a little bit weak. If we could cement something on c5, and I think also d6 would be sort of a weakness as a weak square. But when we talk about pawns, I think this is the main target now of whites. This is a new weakness in the position that Stockfish forced here. And now Stockfish plays really a great tactic, rook to c1. It seems that it's a bad move because knight takes f2 is of course the possibility here for black, but now knight to d1 attacking the knight, and after knight to d1 we have now rook to c6, this in between attack on the queen. The queen has to retreat. Basically it's a problem because you cannot take here, queen takes b2. So if you take, then you have simply rook takes c8, rook takes, queen takes d7 with an attack on the rook. If you try to take here queen to a1, then simply queen to c8 wins the game. After king to f7, knight to e5, you can have here your square, but here it's a forced checkmate in one move, queen to f7. So you see, it's not so easy here to defend for black. As I said, after the move rook to c6, here Fire tried knight to b2 on the counter attack on the queen, but now queen to c2 attacking this two pieces, also the knight, and also, as I said here, this bad bishop on c8. So here queen to d8 has to be played. You have to defend your bishop, and now finally queen takes b2. And again, we'll stop a little bit here. Again, if we evaluate the position, although white is a pawn down, but still, you see, we have the possibility to double up rooks here on the c file. We have the possibility to play on our outpost on e5, and this bishop is still blocked out by its own pawns here in the center, so still this bishop could somehow get into the game. So I simply like even better here white's position, although down a pawn, as I said. So knight to f6, we have rook to b1, bishop to d7, attacking the rook, rook to c3, bishop to e8, which is a common idea in Dutch defense games. You see that many times that black is trying to do this zigzag move, sort of, to somehow include this bishop into the game, and now to get the bishop here on this very active square on h5. So there is simply no better way to include this bishop into the game. So bishop to e8, so far a good move here by Fire, and now we have queen to c1. Okay, this rook to h6 is on h6 is a little bit misplaced, I think, now, because you see Stockfish has now a great activity on the b and c file. In the game, a knight to e4 was played, rook to c7, and now knight to d6, queen to c5, knight to e4, queen to c1, and I think Fire was hoping here for a perpetual, for a draw, but now after queen to c5, knight to e4 here, queen to e7. After queen takes e7, queen takes e7, and now this rook will come, of course, on the seventh rank and will attack. Basically, it's hard to defend here. If you try king to f8, like Fire played in the game, we have here the possibility rook to b7, and now a5. So this is really a bad position for black. Even if you try to defend here this pawn with the move rook to g6, then you get simply knight to e5. If you try rook to g3 to stay on the g file, then bishop takes e4. You see, you cannot take because you lose the rook, so it's a winning game for white. So okay, here after the move rook to b7, as I said, a5 was played, and still I'm pointing you out, although again black has this powerful outpost, still we can play knight to e5 and then bishop takes e4. Again, our knight on e5, when we manage to do that, it's cemented. It cannot be attacked by any other minor piece, so we don't have black doesn't have here the dark square bishop anymore, doesn't have any knight on the board. Then this knight on e5 would be really sort of an octopus all over the board. So that's why here I really like white's position. So after the move a5, we have simply rook takes g7, taking the pawn, knight to d6, and here Stockfish goes for trades of rooks. Rook takes a7, rook to g6, and now rook takes h7. So you see how it is important to occupy your opponent's 7th rank. Of course, from black perspective, it would be the 2nd rank. Now the rook is taking all its pawns on the 7th rank. Knight to f7 here. Fire is trying to lock the rook a little bit here, maybe to trap the rook, but now finally knight to e5, we have a rook to d6, and here a very cool move by Stockfish, rook takes f7. If you take with the bishop, then you get the fork on d7, so that's why here rook takes d7, knight takes, bishop takes d7, and we have now a new position in which this title, it's all about bishops and pawns, really has its meaning, because now you see how bad it is to have this light square bishop when you have light square pawns on the board. Now you see this bishop can play freely, and the problem is that this bishop on f7 is always a little bit stuck to the defense of its own pawn. So that's why here, as I said, basically it's a game in which we have an extra piece, sort of. So here it's of course a completely winning endgame. But okay, let's see how Stockfish continued here. We have king to g3. Of course, you have to play with your king in an endgame stage. The king has to be used as a piece here. King to g7. We have bishop to f3. We have king to h6, and now bishop to d1. Bishop to h5. What you don't want to do is to take here bishop takes h5 after king takes h5. It would be a draw because you cannot here simply pass through with this pawn, although you have an extra pawn, but the possibilities are here not to win the game. You cannot push pawns here in the center to create an extra pawn, so that's why here after the move bishop to a4 was played here by Stockfish. Bishop to f7, and now bishop to b5, king to g7. We have bishop to a6, bishop to e8, bishop to c8, and you see here king to f6. You have to defend this pawn. You have to defend it with the king or with the bishop, so one of these pieces is always a little bit stuck to the defense. So now this king can play much more freely, and even the bishop in the continuation, so it's of course completely winning. So king to f2, bishop to f7, bishop to a6. We have bishop to e8 again, but now bishop to e2. We have king to e7, king to e1, king to f6, king to d2. We have bishop to a4. Now bishop to d1. Now it's a good thing to force the trades of bishops, because now if we trade off the bishops, we can simply push the pawn further and go after this pawn, and then we will have a new pass pawn here on the a file. So that's why here Fire escaped from this potential trades of the bishops. We have king to c3, king to e7, and now king to b3, king to f6 again, king to a3, bishop to e8, and now h4, king to g7. And in this position Fire resigned because there is now this simple threat, bishop to a4. If you trade off the bishops, then king takes a4, king takes a5, then we would have a new pass pawn. If you move here, then we can simply take play bishop to d7, and now march simply with our king, and again create a new pass pawn. So as I said, in this position Fire resigns. So great game by Stockfish, really crushing this Dutch defense. But this is, as I said, the main positional idea, getting rid of this good piece by black. The only piece that's really good on the board is this dark square bishop on c7, so that's why here by Stockfish played this bishop to f4, bishop takes f4, g takes f4, although you have double pawns. But now knight to e5, you saw b4, b5 was the possibility, e3 really cementing the center, and it was a great positional game by this top engine Stockfish. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Meanwhile, you can watch my other commented chess games played by computers. Here's the link, and you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is best, of course.